It is state playoff time. The brackets are set. The action is set to unfold across the state in about 100 settings on this first Friday of the high school playoffs. And Ken Trahan, this is your favorite time of year, I know, as we get down to playoff time. We wish there were fewer brackets out there, but the fact of the matter is, come 5 weeks from now, we'll have 9 champions being crowned in the Superdome.
We're used to it now, so let's just roll.
Let's start on the non-select side with Class 5A, and the number 1 seed is West Monroe, the number 2 seed Trahan, but I think this bracket goes deeper than that. Talk about the teams that you think are contenders to really be there.
Zachary and Acadiana are seeded to play each other, and those are 2 teams that could win a state championship. They're both outstanding. Zachary is the defending champion. Acadiana has lost once. They know how to play at this level at this time of the year, and they play a style of football that's difficult to play against. So I think you have to look at them very seriously. John Ehret has been to West Monroe already and lost 44-20. But the fact that they went there already and had that experience, I think will help them if they have to go back and make it more competitive. Trahan is loaded with skill position players. Steve Robichaux has the maps. He understands what to do this time of year and how to utilize his talent, which is plentiful. So I think those teams are the ones to really keep an eye on in terms of the genuine contenders to win it all.
Any long shots in your mind?
Well, I mean, there's always, that type of team that can pop up. Landry Walker plays at Barb. That's an 18-15. The winner of that game could emerge as a certain upset type of team down the road because Landry Walker still has very good athletes and players, and Barb is a solid program that's won 8 games, and they've been there, done that. They beat Trahan a year ago in the playoffs. So I'd keep an eye on that matchup.
As you look at Class 4A, and of course the game that we are broadcasting between Belle Chase and Carver is certainly one of the most enticing matchups on the opening weekend. But your overview of the 4A bracket, I guess it has to start with the team that's held up the trophy the last 2 years, and that's the Edna Carr Cougars.
They are innocent until proven guilty. They are certainly the team to beat, and Warren Easton is the second best team. And they're seeded to play each other for a second time. If it's anything like the first matchup, what a delicious game that would be in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Of course, there are other undefeated teams, St. Martinville, Northwood, both teams that haven't lost a game. You have to take them seriously. The same is true of Lakeshore, who was in the Dome a year ago. And, of course, Neville is a power program, so you have to give them respect as well. I think that the favorites certainly come from among those particular teams.
As you look at Class 3A, I think if you were going to say that any bracket suggests wide open, it might be this one. Iota is the number one seed. And what do you see in this one in terms of favorites and long shots?
Yeah. I mean, Iota beat Eunice by a point to go undefeated, and Eunice is a good team too. And Kaplan has been there, done that. Sterlington and Union Parish are really good teams, but I would certainly tell you to keep an eye on St. James. They played a very good schedule, very good teams. Throw out the record. It's not that important. I probably should have beaten St. Charles Catholic. That's a dangerous team. Gina is a talented team as well that I would keep an eye on. And, if you're looking for a long shot, maybe Northwest is a team to keep an eye on. They have a win over Church Point, who's a good team as well. But, again, I think this is probably what you categorized would be accurate, an open situation in this particular class.
I think Class 2A is fairly wide open as well. There's a lot of good teams at the top, although it may not be a team coming from off the radar to win because there's some awfully good teams at the top of the bracket.
Well, I think it's one of the two. I think it's Amite or Manny. I would pick Amite as the most talented team, and I think that they would be the team to beat. But I would keep an eye on Welsh, even though they got demolished by Notre Dame. That's, of course, something that happens to a lot of people. They're still a good football team. So I'd keep an eye on those guys. Kinder would be a team to watch as a dark horse. They've been there, done that. They've played a tough schedule, so they're very competitive. And if you're looking at, the long shot type of team, look at a number 19 Capital. They've got talent. They've played a good schedule, and they could certainly pull a first-round upset and maybe go beyond that.
The one thing to remember, too, with those teams that are maybe seated below 16, okay, and we've talked about a couple of them already, if they can win that first-round game, you've got a chance to play a high seed at home in the second round and maybe knock somebody off and clear out part of that bracket and make a deep run. As you look at Class 1A, been a lot of the same teams. You look at the top 5 seeds, it's those same 5 teams that it seems like we see at the top of the 1A bracket year after year after year. The defending champ, West St. John, is seeded number 5.
Yeah, and they started off poorly and got roasted early in the season, but look at who they played. And then also look at the fact that they've improved as the season has gone along. So to me, I still think somebody's got to beat them. I still think they're the team to beat overall. That's just my opinion. I don't discount Oak Grove's really good and Haynesville, a traditional power. Kentwood's really good. Don't look at their losses to end the season. They lost to two good teams, but I like West St. John. I think they've got a great shot to win it. I think Homer from up north is a dangerous team. Again, schedule and athletes. Bazile's a good football team as well. One note about 4A I didn't mention too. Watch Carencro, 22nd seed. They're 4-6, but look at the schedule they've played and look at what they've done of late. That's a dangerous lower seed with a record that will deceive people. And you mentioned Carver. That's a dangerous team. They nearly knocked out Carr last year, and they've got the athletes to compete with the best teams in that particular class.
No doubt about it. Okay, let's switch over to the select side, and we'll start with Division One. You've got 12 teams in the bracket. John Curtis, deservedly so, undefeated, the number one seed. What's interesting to me is you look at some of this in Shreveport. Okay, Bird is the number 4 seed. Evangel's the number 5 seed. Anybody up there will tell you, especially after Evangel handled Bird the way it is, it ought to be the other way around, but that's just Evangel having played a lot of teams in Texas, I guess. But take us through your thoughts on what, at least from seed perspective, could be a championship game rematch from a year ago.
Yeah, very much so. Catholic is a terrific program. Their non-district schedule is second to none. They fear no one. They play everyone. Had a great win over Zachary, a thrilling win. Lost to U-High, but who doesn't? And Gabe Fertitta is a great coach. They're extremely well prepared, and I would not be surprised at all if they uphold their seed and play for the championship again. Curtis is clearly the favorite. They have no perceivable weakness on their football team, but they've got to get past Evangel to get there. And Evangel's on the same side of the bracket, and again, they're a lot better than their record. Their defense is good. They throw the ball better than they did last year. That would be a clash of the Titans just to be able to have a chance to get to the Dome. And, of course, the other team to keep an eye on would be Archbishop Rummel. They're a good football team. When they're healthy and have all their pieces in place, they're a dangerous team because their defense has improved and they've got some good skill position players and, of course, a Division I quarterback. So that's a good team. But Curtis, in my mind, is the team to beat in this class.
As you look at Division II, I think you and I agree that going across all divisions, all classes, University High is the best high school football team in Louisiana. They are the number 1 seed, and it's going to take an extraordinary effort from someone to keep them from winning a state championship next month.
It's not going to happen. I mean, they're too good. St. Thomas More can score enough points to keep it interesting because they've got a great offense. St. Charles Catholic has a great defense, but not enough offensively. Archbishop Hannon's had a really good season. I have a lot of respect for what Coach Watney has done there. And, overall, you look at the rest of that bracket, I just don't see anyone that really has a shot. U-High is the most prohibitive favorite of any classification.
I like what the analyst said on the announcement of the bracket. If you took STM's offense and St. Charles Catholic's defense and put them on one team, you might have a chance to contend with an incredibly talented U-High team. You look at Division III, and again, it seems just like we've talked about. You start with the same teams. Notre Dame, while they got upset in the finals a year ago, you would think this has all got to go through them.
They're the best team. They're the best coach team. One of the greatest coaches in the history of prep football, and Louis Cook. And what they've done to some good teams, including Welsh, is eye-opening, to say the least. Certainly, Catholic New Iberia showed last year that they could play with them. Same thing happened this year. Notre Dame demolished Catholic in the regular season, but they did that last year too, and then lost the title game. Brendan Dest is an excellent coach at Catholic. You have to give them a serious chance here. Country Day had an undefeated season. So did Dunham. And yet, I think Newman would probably be more dangerous than both of those at this stage because of their numbers, because of their diversification on offense, and the fact that they've been there before and got an experience last year in the semifinals for a second time. So that's a dangerous team. But Notre Dame.
Well, and the challenge Newman has is they've got to go through Notre Dame to get to the Dome. You're looking at a potential Country Day Dunham semifinal, which would be very intriguing. And then we look at Division IV. Southern Lab was not eligible for the playoffs a year ago. They're back this year. They're the number 1 seed. And obviously you've got some teams that played for the title a year ago who are going to be contenders this year. But again, I think it's got to start with Southern Lab with the amount of talent they have.
It does. Lafayette Christian's the defending champion, and they're undefeated this year. And they've not played really a close game all year long. So you've got to take them very seriously. They're awfully good. And then Ascension Catholic. Ascension Catholic beat Kentwood, and they lost to Southern Lab by 3 points. So that is a really good football team, and they got there last year too. So I think it's clearly one of those 3 teams. I don't think anybody else really has much of a chance. Vermilion Catholic's a nice team, but they got whipped by Lafayette Christian. St. Frederick's done a really good job this year. They've won a lot of close games, which indicates a growing program and a well-coached program. So they're in a close game. They certainly can win, but there's no way that I think that any of those teams can compete with the top three. Everybody wants to just say Southern Lab's going to win it, and they very well could, but I think any one of those top three could win it. I think Ascension Catholic or Lafayette Christian are just there as well that have an opportunity to win.
Final thoughts as week one of the playoffs gets rolling here. Anything that you think we may be talking about a month from now that maybe you weren't expecting?
Well, I think that, again, you always look for that lower seed. Who's that team that's seeded in the 20s or in the high teens that has a chance to break through and make a difference? And a lot of people want to point to Hanville with their quarterback being back, and certainly that is a possibility. That's a very good opening round game against Walker, who's a good football team. If they could win the first game, they'd get home for a second game and maybe have a chance to make a run. I mentioned Karen Crow earlier, a team to keep an eye on and watch. I mentioned Landry Walker, if they could break through at Barb as an 18 seed. So there's always a story like that. Those are some possibilities. It's probably going to be somebody else we didn't mention. It always works out that way, but let the fun begin.
One point on Hanville, if they win and the seeds hold, you're looking at a championship game rematch from a year ago in the second round, because it would be Zachary at Hanville. That would be interesting. There's no other place to get your high school playoff coverage than right here at CrescentCitySports.com. Stay with us all throughout the road to the Dome.